Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Checking in on the market. So we had a day where we started with weakness this morning. We had a double top with the extended hours levels. The high of pre-market was 290.46. The high of Friday was 290.47. So we had that double top it heading into the morning. And we can say if we do not break these levels, we are going to look for some consolidation on the hourly time frame. So we started first thing. The bulls were unable to break resistance by 10 cents. We then pulled back and hit a new low of the day and had an all-out dump thanks to QQQ. So QQQ had the most weakness in the morning, but as we've seen a common pattern in the last 2 weeks, morning weakness, specifically in the first half hour, it stood out to me, but today it took a little bit longer, took 80 minutes to find that bottom, but the morning dumps get bought into afternoon follow through for those bulls. So on the hourly time frame, we did break the low of Friday's trading, but it went straight into a bounce and we closed fairly strong for the bulls. So looking at the daily chart for SPY, it was the second highest close of 2019, and the bulls still have full control, and that will be the case for me as long as 286.70 holds, because that's our most recent daily high or low. We're still sitting about 1% or less from the all-time high, and the bulls are still looking at those levels. Today, what stood out to me for QQQ was essentially profit taking heading into Tuesday's earnings of Netflix, because Tuesday after hours, we're going to get Netflix earnings, and the rest of the tech sector is going to react to that, whether it's bullish or bearish. So on QQQ, to me, just looking at the 15-minute chart, this tells me profit taking and just really a whole bunch of shifting around with those who want to bail out before earnings doing so, and those who want a better position heading into earnings, getting back in for that V-shaped recovery. So no red flags at this point, and still watching this hourly, or I should say the daily RSI on SPY, which again, continuous rejections from 70, and here we are still struggling right at this 70 line, and we're going to be watching to see if we can finally get clearly over 70, because if not, that would mean we need to pull back in the short term, in the near term future. IWM today pulled back a little bit more clearly. Anything above 154.91 keeps the daily uptrend intact. That uptrend is not at risk at this point, but it is closer to breaking than it would be on SPY. So if we were to see that support level break, it might be a potential early indication. IWM, a couple times on this move since the December dump, has given us early indications of what to be looking at for the other names. So it's something to keep an eye on, but still in the daily uptrend. So QQQ, we did have that 4-hour rising wedge, and it did break bearish this morning. But again, the lack of follow through that the bears have been able to put together on all of these pullbacks since December is clearly notable at this point. So this was the rising wedge that I was watching. We broke below it. The bulls bought that dip, closed right up near that support line, and here we are right back inside, and a successful recovery by those bulls. So we do have a daily lower wick on the daily chart. The most important level for me was 183.63 and 182.65, and we're still well above those levels, and it was the highest close in 2019 for the tech sector. So not seeing a whole lot of weakness as we anticipate the Netflix earnings. Keeping in mind that Netflix just dumped in response to competition from Disney and Disney announcing their new plans. And that is really pricing in a lot of potential bad information because, again, the reason that we dumped isn't going to be reflected on these financials, maybe in future financials, but not the ones that are currently coming. So that, in my opinion, is why we saw Netflix bulls buy the dip pretty aggressively today as well. Financial sector, so JPM had the first earnings for the financial sector on Friday. Everybody reacted in the financial sector. And then we saw some pullback today, even though we still had some good numbers from JPM. It is a daily inside bar. If we break 26.90, the gap to fill is 26.75, but we're not worried about this daily uptrend because we are still easily holding 26.28 support, increasing bull volume on the way up. And if we have to pull back and break 26.90, we will just look for a daily higher low to form. XBI, flush and bounce today and getting a bit extended on the hourly, but we're not changing the hourly trend. So we had the high of the day, the low of the day, and then the bounce in the afternoon. But we have to change the hourly trend to look for this bounce to get any kind of follow through. So the key resistance for me on XBI is going to be 89.07 and then 90.41. And if we break those levels, I'm looking at XBI as a bit of a longer term pattern and just disregarding some of these little candlesticks that are sticking out in here. So again, I do like it better on the 2-day time frame just because it's a clear higher low pattern. The bulls need to maintain 86.37 to keep that higher low pattern, and trying to see more convincing follow through after the break of 93 did not get much follow through. So need an hourly trend change for the XBI bulls. VIX here had a strong start to the morning, gave it back, closed near the low of the day. Again, 4 days in a row, closing near the low. 5 of the last 6 days, closing near the low and not getting much follow through. And a point that I wanted to make on VIX was trying to trade it like you trade a stock is probably going to get frustrating because it doesn't really do trends in the same way. We can monitor trends and anticipate higher lows and higher highs, but for the VIX, a lot of the moves are very quick and impulsive, and then they fade. And today's a perfect example of that, of just 15-minute time frame starting all bull on the morning, and then after the lower high and lower low, just gave the entire move back. And normally you would anticipate at least the bulls attempting to find support at some point here, but again, it's not the same as a stock. So I personally trade it less than stocks because I'm more comfortable trading stocks. Oil on the daily time frame is looking for a higher low to form and still looking pretty contained on the 4-hour chart. We can see that it is some lower highs and lower lows, but not a lot of bear follow through on those lows. And I'm looking at 61.79 as the key support still. If we can change the 4-hour trend back to the bulls, then we will have a new daily higher low established, and bulls are hoping that it's 63.01. To get that, I would need to see the 4-hour time frame break 63.74, and even that wouldn't be a trend change. So actually the bulls have a lot of work to do to change this trend. We need to bounce and then set a higher low and higher high. So patiently watching this consolidation for oil, and if we lose the daily uptrend, we'll zoom out to the weekly, and after 6 green weeks in a row, we know consolidation is coming on the weekly chart for oil, probably sooner rather than later. But again, the consolidation the last 4 days has been pretty healthy overall. And last, natural gas dumping down to lower lows on the daily. 2571 is the only support nearby. We're only a penny and a half above that level. Odds of breaking it are more likely than not, and that would be just another leg down on this weekly time frame, keeping the natural gas bears in full control. And the weekly RSI will be approaching oversold the closer we get down into the 250s and 240s if we do see another leg down, and the daily RSI close to oversold again as well. So keeping an eye on oversold conditions, but being very picky as the natural gas bears have had so much strength for so long. So it's all about Netflix earnings tomorrow after hours. We'll see how that goes, and we'll see if the S&P 500 can tag this all-time high that it is flirting with. Hope you're well, and we'll see you soon. So taking a break from story time today, and these are my babies growing some tomatoes and cucumbers getting ready to go in the ground. And I don't have a greenhouse, so I take them out every day for a walk, leave them outside, and bring them back in at night so they can stay warm, because these cucurbits, as far as the cucumbers go, and the nightshade tomatoes, they want it, 70 to 90 degrees all the time, so they wouldn't do too well outside. Growing more than I need and culling out the weaker ones, keeping the stronger ones. Probably got 5 different varieties of tomatoes. Green zebra, some Brandywine variety, you can tell the difference. These are your standard tomatoes. And then these leaves that are more rounded are the Brandywine variety. Different kinds of cucumbers, some for pickling and some for salads. They're gonna go crazy. I'm gonna trellis those up the side of my house. Currently in transition while I'm looking for a mini farm and going to move back into a spot that I was a couple months ago. So the other day I was sleeping over my girlfriend's house, and I woke up at 6 as I heard the rain start pouring down, and I remembered I left these guys outside because it was going to be mild that night, and I had to run home before the sun came up, bring them back inside so they wouldn't get damaged. But it's good to expose them. The one disadvantage to a greenhouse is unless you roll up the sides, there is a lack of wind and a lack of elements, and that strengthens the stems. If you have wind that's knocking them back and forth, that builds their stems up, and if they're not exposed to that, it leaves them a bit weak. So it's been pretty windy today, so that'll strengthen them up real nice. And all the ones that I don't use, I'm probably going to do the tomatoes in some big pots, and I'll do the cucumbers in pots on my deck, which gets the best sun to climb up the side of the house. But the ones I don't use, I'm just going to stick into the ground and see if they can tough it out on their own. So those are my starts. Gonna do a whole bunch, planted potatoes in some pots, which I've never done potatoes in pots. Did that a couple days ago. And gonna get some summer squash and winter squash going. I love dill. I want dill and cilantro. So I'll keep you all posted. We actually have some aphids going crazy on some of our peas. So I ordered a whole bunch of ladybugs and praying mantises. Gonna get the insect predator game going. So I'll introduce you to my baby ladybug and praying mantises once I get those. But you should all plant some stuff. It's not really that hard, and it's a fun experiment, and you can learn from it. And then you can eat stuff that you grow. And the connection that you get from eating something that you grow from seed is unlike anything that I've ever experienced, and it completely changed what eating food is for me.